I'm here till Thursday. Thanks for the claps. Thanks, everyone. We've got an audience. Love audience. Cool. All right. Welcome to Wealth Cartel Legends, where we talk about how hindsight is a motherfucker.
Our mission, guys, is to stop people saying, I wish I had listened, and to help people to capitalise on everyone else's mistakes before making them yourself.
Yeah, in summary, our tagline says it all. Turn our hindsight into your foresight so you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did.
That's a $20 fucking glass of scotch because they wouldn't let us have a shot. We're actually at Bellavista Hotel, guys, by the way. We should give them a shout out there.
We do tag them. Yeah, Bellavista Hotel shout out. We should put in our intro, actually.
Yeah, they're letting us recording here for free. We need to fix the lighting, but other than that, we're pretty good. All right, guys. Welcome to today's episode of the Wealth Cartel. Introducing today's guest, Arlene, the Angerfist Blencowe. Arlene is a boxer out of Port Macquarie. Port Macquarie. The mid-north coast. She's been fighting now. How long?
Going into my 12th year.
12 years. Arlene has 2 kids. And that's all sort of we'll talk about in regards to that. We'll let her get into it. But we got some big announcements going on with Arlene. She's got a big announcement to let us know today. So we'll let her get into that. All right.
Okay. Well,
sweet.
My name's Arlene. I'm a professional fighter. A 2-time world boxing champion, and more recently I'm focusing on MMA. I'm signed to Bellator in America, and big announcement is that I'm fighting Chris Cyril for the Bellator world title.
How good. we figured these out. Look a little when you go over there.
You're lucky you didn't press the boo one.
When you go over there.
Oh, the boo.
When you go over there and bash her, we'll get her on and we'll do this. Alrighty, cool. Well, that's massive. I've sort of known about that for a little while. Arlene, I sponsored Arlene in her last fight, and we've committed again to the Cyborg fight, and we're big fans. I mean, I'm a big fan of the fight game and stuff like that, and my wife as well, as she's sort of started jumping on board, and she's keen as mustard as well. So we've decided to follow along, and we're going to sponsor you for this fight. So we're keen as we're a little bit disappointed we can't get over there with what's going on with COVID, but we'll be watching from home. So give it a help.
Half of Western Sydney was going to come over. Like when I first sort of found out about the fight, like it is a bit of a bummer, like not having all of my coaches there and obviously training partners.
What are you doing for a corner?
Well, Jamie Tahuna.
Yeah.
Oh, I keep calling him Jamie, but I realise that everyone calls him James.
It's Jamie. Jamie Tahuna. That's what he fought as. It's Jamie Tahuna, yeah?
Yeah, okay, cool. No, some people look at me and they're like, Jamie, is that his cousin?
Jamie way away from EFG, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Jamie, and then my partner, he'll come over too. So, and then I'm hoping that Michael and Jonathan Jacksons will just meet me over there as well, and I'll have the
Okay, cool. How'd you sort of hook up with them? With that's a big sort of step, to link up with them guys.
It's funny, all these questions I'm sort of getting asked in these podcasts at the moment, they're things that I've been thinking of. And 2015, I had my 3rd Bellator fight, and my wrestling was atrocious. She's actually, the girl that I fought there, she's actually fighting Kat Zingano, Gabby Holloway, and yeah, I got taken down with stupid takedowns. Like, I think by then it was like my 11th or 12th professional MMA fight, and I looked terrible. But anyway, I got the win. But the wrestling coach came up to me after that fight, and he's like, "Oh, you should really come to Jackson." So then, yeah,
they're the best. They're the best.
Oh, yeah, it's just
they got massive names that come out of them. Like, I know,
they got buttons.
Well, yeah, but so they had I love Cerrone.
Yeah.
And I know they had some sort of dust up, but I didn't really know who the gym was at the time. I knew they produced good fighters, but I watched this thing on Cerrone's, and someone said to him, "Oh, will you ever go back there?" And he just like sprayed them. Hey, he was like, give them shit. And then I started looking into them, and I was thinking, fuck me, Dad, look at the fighters that have come out of here.
They got so many, and
just lined up, and the wall. They got like a mural wall.
And Mike and John only focus on like the top tier. Like everyone else tries to like the top cream of the crop. There's so many fighters that we don't know. There's still guns that are over there, but you don't see them.
Yeah, well, you don't see them. That's because they haven't made names for themselves yet, but
Yeah, I remember when I was there in 2016, like Saturday mornings, you don't have any classes, it's just privates you've organised with coaches. And I remember standing there and I was doing a wrestling private, and I looked around the room and there was Holly was training, John was training, what's his name? The guy that had his lip. Yes, he was training.
He's a big dude.
Yeah, he's massive.
He's a big
and
dude.
his accent's really cool in person too.
French,
yeah.
French.
BJ Penn was there. But
he
Cowboy.
was my favorite, all-time favorite, BJ Penn when I was younger. He was the reason I was in Hawaii. He was the reason I knew who the UFC was. So
I loved him until his right-hand man dusted up me, mate.
So I was in Hawaii and BJ was fighting, and I was staying in the big island called Kona, which is where he's from. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And we remember I told you I smashed that car in the States? Yeah. This is what happened. We drove down to the pub and it was they had literally gated off the whole of this part, like this whole area.
Yeah.
And BJ was on this big screen or whatever. And I fell in love with it. I smashed the car that night, blind.
It was all BJ's
It
fault.
was his fault. So I loved him ever since. But I was a massive fan of him. Look, we have gone a bit off track. I knew that was going to happen leading in. And fuck off, you wanker. That wasn't me. That was
Arlene's or Dan's.
That was Arlene's fault then. Alrighty. So what we want you to do is we want you to give us a bit of an intro as to how you got into fighting.
Yep.
Obviously where you're from and you grew up on the North Coast and how that got you into doing what you do and then from there, what life was growing up and when did your mind shift change? So just sort of let us know a little bit about yourself.
I actually grew up in Gympie, Queensland.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Fucking Queensland.
I've been there a few times.
I was born in New South Wales though, so I go for New South Wales.
Yeah.
But so I grew up in a small country town. I think it was like 100 kids in my school in total. So like all our
bigger now too.
Pardon?
Gympie's grown a bit.
Yeah. Well, we actually lived in Amamore, so it was like 40
okay.
minutes from Gympie itself, so like even smaller. Kind of, where the music muster is. So you got the Tamworth one, and then the one up in Gympie. Oh, it's Amamore.
I've never heard of Gympie before.
You do?
Oh, really?
I've stayed there 7 dozen plus on the golf course.
Gympie, I don't know. You're a bit.
So I go from Taree. Yeah, Gympie. Now I'm in Penrith.
Yeah, I don't know.
Should have moved to Mount Druitt or something.
Which one's
Whoa.
Yeah, that wasn't very nice. Try and fuck with her.
But yeah, so I grew up in a small country town. My background, my mum's Filipino, and my dad was Australian. He was a lot older, so I think he was like 56 when I was born. So, and my mum was a lot younger. So, we were like the only ethnic family, like ethnic women sort of in that town. So it was a very Australian country town. So growing up, I remember my sister. She's got tan olive skin. She got bullied all through school by like my supposed friends and that. So I was just always sticking up for her. And but yeah, more so like with living in a small country town, there wasn't much inspiration. Like I think the most famous person I met my whole childhood was remember? Oh, probably not. I will check Steve Renner.
Yeah, I know Renner.
The Broncos. Yeah. So like I raced because I was right into athletics growing up. Ran against his niece, and that was at like Bundaberg or something. But apart from that, like the only people that I could like look up to growing up was when I used to watch State of Origin or watch the Olympics. I'm like, oh my god, these sporting people are like superhuman. Like, but
you always like they were always your go-to.
Yeah,
your heroes?
But were you because it was such a small town? Were you always a gun? Like did you always?
I always. Yeah.
I wish I had that.
Yeah, I'm gonna move to a small town so my kid can win the races. Your kid comes second in Gympie, give it up, son.
Was there? Did you have a thing like my wife's from Townsville, right?
Yeah.
And so is she in Townsville? This big thing in a small town. You grow up and you live your whole childhood wanting to move to the big city. Were you like that? Like, did you plan always?
Oh no, it wasn't. Yeah, the idea of me living sort of in Sydney, well, on the west of Sydney.
Even Brisbane wise, like
no. To be honest, I never really thought sort of big when I was a kid. And it was one of the things now being a mum myself, like I actually moved from Port Macquarie as a family choice for my kids' future. So it was about me, obviously my fighting too, but the big thing was that, uni's down here for my daughter because she was always academic. And then my son, I knew that he was going to be something good, like from a little age. Cause
we'll give him a shout out actually. He's a freaky, he's a soccer player. He's a goalie, and Dion, which is Arlene's partner, who I know. So we met through Dion. I know Arlene's partner. Just to work with him for a little while. And what's your son's name? Kian.
Yep.
Keen.
Yeah, he always gets Keen. It's spelled like Keen. Yeah.
So who's he play for?
Mount Druitt Town Rangers.
And he are ragging on Mount Druitt. Come on, man.
But you got to see, like Arlene will put a photo up, and there'll be all these kids out on the field, and her kid is. But like he's a beast compared to these other kids, eh? Like, he's a head taller, right?
Yeah. It doesn't help that he's like half the team are Asian.
I almost had to cut that out. Actually, you're allowed to say
I'm
that. You're
Asian.
Asian.
I'm Filipino. I feel like that's always that card I can always use.
Yeah, no. All right, cool. So pretty much you come. This is cool because I enjoy that. I want to move north. I want to go to the mid north coast.
Yeah.
Someone said to me yesterday, "How are you going to go up there? Your kids are just going to want to come back. You're going to be 3.5 hours away from you."
Yeah.
How would you do that?
Well, yeah. So I actually moved to the mid north coast when I was 15. I met the kid's dad when we were 13, 14, and I actually moved in with his family. I'd by then already ran away from home and done the wrong thing and this and that. But yeah, I found stability in their household. But yeah, we moved down to the mid north coast, and I found, I guess bored kids tend to get themselves into trouble. There's not much, and that's one of the things with my kids down here now. They're just always doing something and aspiring to something. They don't have enough time to do something.
How do you find time? How do you find time to get them around? Because you're busy yourself.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
Like you did it the other night at like 8 p.m. or something like that.
Yeah.
And we stayed late, and she was like, tell the story. I'd be interested for you to tell the story in regards to how you used to do your cardio when the kids were babies. Let us know.
Well, so Kian was only a baby when I first started fighting, so he was not quite 12 months old yet, and like getting up for 5 a.m. training. So, like I used to work a full-time job as well, like back then, but like strict hours. So whereas now I'm a little bit easy because I'm out on the road, but back then I was like managing a clothing store, so you had to be strict hours. So I'd get up at 5 o'clock, take the baby bonnet down and put it on the front mailbox, and I'd walk and run from the far side of my next door neighbour's fence to the other side. So it was like a 100-meter strip back and forward, and that would be my cardio. My neighbours would like.
I actually read something today as well. She said that she would spar, and Kian would be in the pram next to the ring, and then she'd have to change nappies in between rounds.
He used to be like, if he did a pull or something, he'd just be like, some kids were just happy to sit. Yeah, he would do it, and he'd need to change him straight away. So I'd be like trying to spar, and Kayla would be like, "Mom, Kian's what wind you are." So then I'm like, 1 minute between I could get out, change it up.
This sparring, but to me, that's massive. That shows heavy resilience. There's not a lot of people. I can do that. I've got a pretty good mindset. There's no fucking way.
He goes to the gym only if his kid pisses in the bed.
100%. If my kid pisses the bed, I'll go to the gym because I don't want to clean. I don't want to change the seat.
That's motivation. That's a true story.
That's a true story.
Really? Bees has got a water bottle.
She's gonna get ideas out of that.
So I want to take a step back to your childhood a bit because you're an inspiration as a mum and just as an athlete and as a person now. But we want to try and identify with those younger kids on what were you like, what was growing up like for you, like what kind of household, like money wise, or like what kind of status did you grow up in, and how did that transform you as a person to where you went?
It's something I'm thinking a lot lately because I feel like I'm sort of reaching a peak in my career, and I'm feeling super happy with where I'm at. So I'm looking back at those things, and we didn't have much money growing up at all. I remember on weekends we'd go like op shopping with my mum's Filipino, so she op shop like anything cheap, whatever. Like it's just, but I used to be so embarrassed. I'm like, oh my god, I'd see like walking down, I'd like trying to hide, like, but now,
especially in Gympie, because you walk to the op shop, it's 3 minutes down the road from your house, and there's only 9 houses in the whole place.
It's not that.
It was. The op shop was a house.
We budgeted heaps. Like it's funny because you don't really pay attention or you don't think back at these things until you become a parent yourself.
Yeah.
And even just looking at what my parents did, or even more so my mum, like she was the hardest working woman I've ever like known or met. So she worked 7 days a week, and she worked picking fruit and vegetables. So that's like a labor, intense job. Yeah. And she's got bad back problems and that now from it, but she'd work, she'd get up in the morning at 4 a.m. and every morning we'd have our lunches made, our uniforms laid out, and then she'd go to work at 5 a.m. She'd get picked up because she didn't get a license until we were in high school or something. But she'd get picked up and then she'd go work all day. She'd get home at 4 p.m. and then she'd have dinner, like a fully cooked meal on the table every night. Like I could probably count on both hands the amount of times that we had takeaway growing up. Like, it just wasn't a thing.
Are you listening to this, Bianca?
See, we thought it was me and Dan grew up like opposite. Like my mum was like that, same thing. I thought we were poor our whole life.
Yeah.
Like it was just my mum was a fighter. Like we op shopped as well,
Yeah.
and I wore hand me downs. Dan's talking about, you know, he was wearing Billabong and whatever.
I was lucky. My old lady, we had no cash, but I had Billabong.
Yeah.
And I probably can't tell everyone how we got it, but we got it. You know what I mean? But
I was embarrassed. Like we used to be embarrassed, but now I look back and I'm like, good on. Like
yeah, well, that's it. I'll even I can't take my kids op shopping now. Like, and don't get me wrong, I can walk into a shop and buy whatever I want, but I'll be like, you know what? Like, there's a more so like I try and do the minimalist thing, and also like recycling and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's not I'm not going to an op shop because I'm poor, but I also try and teach my kids a lesson. If you can't afford those expensive high end brands and whatever, there's no shame in going to an op shop.
Yeah, don't be a baller on a budget.
Survival is first and foremost. And,
I think
we talk about that with my clients on priorities too. Like, people say, I can't afford to travel, but they're wearing DaVinci. It's like, well, what's your priority? You want to travel or you want to wear nice clothes?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's really important too. I think a lot of the people I've spoken to, I've been chatting to a few different people in regards to trying to get them on the podcast, and a lot of people I speak to that have the same traits. Like, you know, you're a fighter, Ryan's a financial advisor. You know, I do different stuff as well, but a lot of us, the one thing we all have in common is resilience from younger. Like, you learn it young, and although you don't implement it straight away, you learn it young. And like you've just said, you know, seeing your mum wake up at 4 a.m. and she's got the lunches packed and all that sort of stuff. You don't think about that until you're older and how hard that must have been. I fully agree with that. Until I got with Bianca, I'd never in my life thanked my mum for what she'd done for me. Yeah. And I was with I got with Bianca and I became official Christmas Day, like, you know, 3.5 years ago. And it would have been 3 or 4 weeks after that. It was like we'd literally only just got together, and I was like, "Fuck, I've got to thank my mum for what she's done," you know, because it just become prominent straight away. You're a little bit different. Ryan's very mature too. Ryan figured out at 21 that how good everyone else was around him. He's different to anyone else. He's a little bit.
I'm in the army, mate.
He's a little bit advanced on those types of things, but I think that's really important to go back on because. You know, back then you just would have thought that's what mum does. That's what she has to do, and it means nothing.
It's good to pick up though, because we're trying to get the young. Like, I wish I'd realised that earlier. I wish I'd realised what mum was doing for me, because I rebelled. Like, I was like, "Mum, you're a fighter." When I say earn my own money, I was like, "I want it," and then that happened for 3 to 5 years, and then I look back and I go, now I find the balance, right? I've got the balance, but I wish I'd taken the good points, and that's what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to. You know, some of the shit that, some of the advice you get, some of the things you learn when you're younger going through that is shit. Yeah. But you've got to know what the good, it took all of us here probably 5-10 years to pick up and go, wow. If we can try and
that's a massive thing. Like when we will go into hindsight a little bit later, but when we are talking about that, I feel like that's probably the best point we've brought up in any of our podcasts so far is have a look at what your parents are doing. You know, look at them. Like, and whether or not they're going good or bad, you can learn. It doesn't just mean that you can only become a good person if your parents are doing those things and getting up at 4 a.m. But if they're not doing what you want to do,
we joke. We joke. Right, Dad grew up in Edmonton his whole life, and he has the fancy clothes, but doesn't own a home, right? Yeah. And he'll be okay with that. And we joke. He at my wedding, I got up and I said, I'd like to thank Mum. You know, she provided everything for me and taught me what to do. I'd like to thank Dad. He taught me everything not to do, and it's true, right? Like your parents shape you.
But I think a lot of the people, especially in the West, I meet a lot of people, and I'm friends with these people too, but I meet a lot of people that are making excuses as to why they're not successful. And they're like, oh, Yeah,
it's the victim mindset.
Yeah. And like, my mum did this, or my mum didn't do this. And I'm like, so fucking what? Fucking what? You know, and I just don't think, I don't think kids get told enough about that. I don't think they get called out on it. Yeah. Kids that, you know, we're not, trying to call someone out at 25 or 26 for not taking accountability of what they're doing is very different to calling someone out at 18. If you sit someone down at 18 and say, listen, own this, just take it on your chin. Just take it on the chin. Don't fucking lie. Own it and stop making excuses for it. It's a lot easier than saying you're a fuckwit, go away. And no one has those conversations, I don't think, with kids. And like, B and I talk about it quite a bit when we get cranky at our kids. You know, you'll yell, and then it's like, fuck, they're not listening. You yell at me, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to bar you. But, you know, it's hard to do. But to have that conversation with someone at 26, teaching old dog new tricks. You have it with someone at 16.
But it's even, like, for me now, especially, well, my daughter's 19, so she's out of home, and she makes, like, her decisions for herself. Like, obviously, she needs me she'll call me and ask for advice or whatever. But with Kian being he's 12 and being a boy that can sort of he's got that nature where he can go one of two ways, and but he's got literally the whole world in his hand right now. So I think it starts at a super early age, and I have been drumming it into him, and I think I've planted the seeds for some good things, but also still want him to take his path.
Did you growing up that way you grew up? Did you have to change, or did that? Because you sound like you must be pretty independent as a kid, the way your mum, she was working all the time.
Well, yes and no. In saying that, she was working all the time, but she still provided for us. Like I said, she was an amazing mum, and I'm glad now that I can sit back and thank her for the way that she raised us. In saying that, though, there are things that I feel like, again, I probably learnt from her the hard way. So she was with my dad, and I think there was a big age gap. And in the Filipinos' minds, it's all about money and this and that. And I don't know where she might have been fooled, thinking that he might have had more money than he had when she married him.
Well, was she from the Philippines?
Yeah, so he went.
Don't need much to know.
But then she obviously, I don't like in their eyes. Obviously, the idea of leaving the Philippines and moving to Australia for a better life.
Aussies are rich, like we're cats, especially back then.
But in the end, she moved over here and worked her ass off my whole life. So whether or not that's a better life, but I guess it's a better quality of life than living in the province in the Philippines. Yeah. But I remember, like, I was with the kid's dad, like I said, from the age of 13 and through to 26, and he wasn't a good partner. He wasn't necessarily a good man either. But there was a lot. But she was just accepting of that because he had money. So in her eyes, we were fine. I had to put up with like whatever he was as a person because he was a provider financially, and I then became super financially dependent upon him. So and would just put up with like things that I shouldn't have put up with.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Like not a segue, but towards the back end we talk about the hindsight, and we spoke about this off air before, where we talked about the triangle.
Yeah. So
you're a classic example, and it must open your mind to think people like in the Philippines who, we talk about a triangle where it's living, enjoying yourself, having enough money to sustain, and being healthy to create happiness.
Yeah.
Money to them is like that. They're so short on that. Like they're making do with health and enjoying their life to the best they can. They've got zero that money aspect. So to them, when they come here, that's the solvable problems.
Yeah, but if they stay there, see, this is that's the line in the sand there as well, because you've got so many people so happy with their lives in the Philippines without money.
They're thinking, if I can do that with no money, if I had the money. So you're a classic example. You had the money. Like you came into this money, but your lifestyle or your happiness was low. That's a really big thing. So when did it change to you? What was the big point between growing up or even through that relationship, for example, to change from that person you were there to what's gotten you to where you are now? When and what is that?
At 26, when I was personally rock bottom in life in general, I was forced to sit back and really evaluate everything in my life and look at how the hell did I get in this position? I just sat back and thought about myself. Also approaching 30 as well. It's kind of like, shit, you're almost 30, and before you're 30, you think 30 is old, and then now, like, I'm approaching 40, you're like, oh, shit, that's fine. But, like, growing up in your teens, you're like, shit, by 30, you've got to have your life in order. You're married, you've got kids, you've got houses, you've got investment property. Like, that's kind of like what I thought 30 would be. 26
that's
when I had.
Fast, man.
Well, I think a lot of people.
They want to plan for the future, but the future comes so quick.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that. A lot of people think if I don't have a house by 30, it's over. They do.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near over.
Yeah.
You're still young at that age. But imagine if you did have that mindset to go, I've got the house at 22.
Yeah.
25, I got my head screwed on. I got a couple of businesses, and I did listen to those people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's few and far between. There's not a lot of people that do it. Imagine being able to provide that.
The drama of digging yourself out of holes and this and that. Like, I don't have a credit card. I don't have a personal debt. I don't have a car loan or anything because it's all. But living in debt and money.
Even if you don't have to stay neutral in those 10 years, you know what I mean? Like we spend those 20s putting ourselves backwards.
Yeah, living and this whole Afterpay. That's what I was.
Have you seen now? I called it. I don't know because with it, like we trade stocks for our clients and stuff, and we bought Afterpay when it was low, but we sold it pretty quick. And I said to everyone, I was like, why would you sell it? It's amazing when people need it because they can't afford it. I said, yeah, but wait till people start afterpaying their Afterpay. And I put a post up there 2 days ago. People start doing it. You can now afterpay your Afterpay.
No, it's just, asking for trouble big time. If you can't, like my number one rule financially is if I can't afford it now,
But that was good timing, eh? Can't afford it now. Bam, bam. That was good timing. That was a full accident. Sorry about that.
If I can't afford it now, then I don't. Yeah, like I don't.
I have the
get
same
it.
mindset as that massively, and like he hammers me for it because he's like his job is to make sure that I'm not freaking out about spending money. And Ryan sort of comes to the party and really implements the fact that if you want to spend it, you should be able to spend it as long as you're still servicing your needs, your goals and stuff like that. Which
like you're not coming down to paying bills or like this and that and getting that.
That's what we do. We always look at that's what one thing I said in my podcast to try and get back to the youngins is first thing is make sure you're okay to survive.
Yeah.
And then you should be looking at your worst case scenario, so making sure you've got the worst case scenario set out, and then everything in between that is now a conscious decision.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a necessity anymore. You get to decide. If you want to be more wealthier, well, then you can go that way. But if you don't and you want to enjoy today, you can do it, or you can find the balance. And, And so you should be setting up the foundations, which is that stuff, and then work on that balance. So that's the when. What about why? Why did you change? Like, there's a difference between when the mindset happens, but then to implement it is the why. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to execute the thought process that hasn't changed. So why did you change? Why did you make that change?
Well, because you just said that you reach rock bottom and that's your why. So when you reach rock bottom at 26, I mean, you probably know now there's a lot more rock bottoms to go in your life. There's a lot of down, but there's a lot of downers. Like there's a lot more times you're going to come up against it.
This is the thing. You take the good with the bad. That was the bad, and you get through it. Like, and this is my thing with absolutely anything in life. You do just get through it. You enjoy the good times, and you just roll through the bad times.
And how? So how did you get through? How do you pull yourself out of that situation now? Like, what would you tell us? I mean, you're a little bit different to us. We're focused on business, and we're very different but very similar in ways. But with you, you're a professional athlete. I feel like you are going to have hard days. There are going to be times where you wake up flat. You don't want to train, but you have to.
There'll be a lot more flat days than the good days.
Yeah. How do you make changes in order to get through that time in your life? How did you do that?
It's definitely been a progression. The last few years have been really, really good in turning me into me right now. I'll probably say the last few years have been the biggest part. So I've been with Dion now for 5 years, and one of the things I was thinking of the other day, he made me become brutally honest with myself with the dumb shit I did in the past.
That's so true.
And it was hard because, especially, I don't really care about what anyone thinks of me, except my partner, because obviously I love him, and what he thinks of me is very, very important. So, and it was a hard sort of moment, things he'd be like, babe, that was fucking stupid. And he'd write at me, he's like, why the hell did you, and so I became accountable and really took on my mistakes and sort of grew from that.
That's the perfect answer, really. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, if you can't listen to the people that love you, and because I know that Dion, in the early days, I wasn't he sort of give me advice or whatever, but I know that he cares for me, as in he wants the very best for me. So he's not going to give me advice that.
Well, it's not going to benefit him.
Well, no.
Your advice is not to benefit. I mean, ultimately it might in the end, but the advice is not to benefit him; it's to benefit you.
Yeah. So, if you can't take advice from people that love you, that want to see the best in you and see the best for you, then what's the point?
I think that's a commonality. We said in our one, both of us, that one of the biggest changes in my life was when I learned to stop blaming external forces for positive and negative. You know what I mean? And controlling what I could control. I used to always think this happened because I was late because of traffic, not because I didn't get up early enough. And then when good things happen, that happened because of something else, right? And so that's what you said. You had to start being real with yourself and going, no, that happened because I fucked up, or that happened because I wasted my time, or I got that benefit because I put the work in. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. The early days, I felt like I did, I mentioned just before, a victim mindset, and I sort of picked up that from a book that I read, and I was like, oh, that was 100% me. When I first started, it was you know what? It felt like the world owes me because this happened to me in my childhood, or the world owes me because this happened to me.
What was the book?
It was the guy with the beard.
Dana.
It's his second book. I hate it. It was talking about when he climbed Mount Everest and that. But just the victim mindset. And as soon as I read that, I was just like, you know what? You're right. The world doesn't owe me anything. Yeah, because this is the thing. A lot of people, when when they're raising kids and stuff, they're like, oh, I do this because this happened to me, my father or my mother did this. It's like, no, well, that's your chance to break. So not be a parent like that. You can do better. So you kind of said that.
That's like that. Have you seen that meme thing where it's like you got an alcoholic, it says my father's an alcoholic, and you got the guy who doesn't drink, my father's an alcoholic. It's the same outcome.
Yeah.
Different the way you look at the situation. And my family's the same, dude. Like I do have a lot of victims in my family, and the one thing that changed my mind, I heard from a guy in the army, it was a colonel from America, and he come over and he said, someone was whinging about something and he'd been shot, he'd lost whatever, and he's just living his life. And he said, you know what? The thing that changed his life when he was down and out, when he lost his limbs and he was being a victim, which I think you're being a victim, but he was like, I was being a victim, right? And he said, and then he met someone who had no arms and no legs, and they were living life. And that the words that he said were, there's always someone out there worse off than you doing better.
100%,
because it's their choice. Like they've got a worse situation and they're doing better with it than what you're doing. So stop whinging and stop thinking you're the only one going through what you're going through. You know, and that with me, I went, okay.
I'm massive on that. You know, Mitch from Barber on the Run, Mitch and Brendan's Barber on the Run. We got a mate of ours cuts our hair. He's 19, started his first business. Good phase. He come up and so what happened? They come up and done my bridal party his hair for me.
Yeah. Shaved your sunset.
No, they cheers for that, boys. So my son shaved his own head on my wedding day. So
he just wanted to be a skinhead.
So what happened the other day? Mitchie, they shared a post. They had a videographer and they shared a post, and I sort of messaged him. I had a few beers, and I messaged him and I said, "Good luck with it all, bro." Rah, rah. And I just said, "Listen, bit of advice, exactly what you just said. Say like exactly the same thing." Like I pretty much said to him, don't feel sorry for us because I think young kids, they get caught up in the COVID or oh, poor me. And I just said to him, fucking
not
have
just
a
young kids.
Well, a lot of people, but young kids aren't told it, right? They're not told. You never get told at 19. I don't remember anyone at 19 saying to me, for the life of me, I don't, because I think about it, ever saying, don't feel sorry for yourself. Go out and get it. Yeah. Like people say it in certain ways, but they don't tell you. Just fucking get on with it, and it is what it is.
I say it to Keanu all the time. He lets the goal in, he drops his head. I'm like, mate.
It is what it is. You can't change it. You can't change it. Get on with it, right? So we had a little bit of a chat, and I just sort of said to him, you know, keep your head up, and whatever happens, it is what it is. If you remember that, you know, for the rest of your life.
Righto, Max Holloway.
Well, but bro, like that sort, and you know what? I normally, to be honest, man, I normally wouldn't reach out in that sense. I wouldn't do it. We done the podcast a couple of times, and I thought, here's my audience. Like he is the audience I'm trying to attract. He's the exact person. And I seen something good in him happen, and I thought, you know, I'm going to fucking say it. And he's a good kid. He was appreciative, and I thought, I think the boys have had a little look at the podcast or whatever, and I normally wouldn't say that shit. I normally would just be like, oh, good luck, boys. But I just wouldn't have my say because it's not my place. And now since we're doing this, I feel like...
Oh, it's almost like you're right. As you get older, like you're a bit younger than me, but I feel like I've taken on in this last 12 months, like more of a mentoring. Like I've got a group of girls that I'm training with at the moment. And even just like extending it through to my social media, like I've gone through what I've gone through, like in life. I don't really share a lot of that, but I do like, you know, when I sort of sit down for a little bit, because if I feel like someone needs to hear something that I can share, I'll tell them. But even in my fight career, but yeah, I haven't experienced all of this, or I'm not where I'm at now without sharing it. That's the whole point of.
And I found, like, first of all, you don't have to share all the details to share the outcomes or lessons. You know what I mean? Like lessons throughout multiple experiences are the same with the same outcomes, and that's what you don't have. You can share that, but I find because like I mentor a lot of people with their money as well on my side of things, and from that part of my profession, you learn so much more of yourself mentoring. Like it's another level of learning.
Yeah.
You implement things for other people, and it changes your perspective on because it changes it from. That was my experience. So shit, that's actually that's a formula.
Yeah, it's sort of an eye opener for yourself too.
We spoke about that in the first podcast too, when you were saying you don't know what you don't know, and it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Like you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, oh, all right, fuckhead. Like
but when you start learning, when you realize
understanding that, like we're both saying, like when I was younger at school, I was a class clown. I was the one in the class mucking around. I could hold the room. And although I've taken that into my business now, like I can't paint for shit. I could teach a painting class, no dramas, because I can make those people feel comfortable in that room.
Yeah.
But that only started happening when I started realizing I didn't know it all. And when there was people smarter than me, like I've been humbled a couple of times in the last 12 months. Met my accountant, and he was like, he made me feel like a spastic. He just made me feel so dumb. at things I thought I was good at, and since, but what I use that to level up, and I feel like that mental process now is sort of I'm leveling up based off of what I'm trying to teach, and I'm then learning off people I'm teaching, which is nuts. Like you don't, it's
That's
crazy.
something I wish I learned earlier. Is actually learning, coughing on the chin. I didn't know everything, and reaching out to the people that did. Where I was like, I'm better than everyone.
Yeah.
And how fast have you got ahead?
That's going to happen the more you rub shoulders with people.
That's right.
And it's the thing a lot of people like to stay in their comfort zone, so they will, to be the king of the pack, they'll be
smartest in my
staying
group.
in Gympie and instead I moved to Sydney.
number one in Gympie instead of 50 in New South Wales. That's a massive thing. A lot of people sit really real back in their comfort zone, and they do use the accolades of what, I'm number one in my own world.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, brother, but the world's a large place, and I feel like breaking down those walls, and for me, I actually feel like I get better being less. So once I get to the top, and I feel like this will continue to go for my whole life, or once I feel like I've reached the upper echelon of whatever I'm trying to do, I then want to throw myself back down to grow again, because once I'm at the top, I don't feel I need to keep going. I need to keep challenging myself, and that's with you. That for me, for a fighter, that's every fight. Well, that's every training
you've got all these,
camp
gym champions or whatever, like they own it in their own gym, but then go to another gym. So I'm like that with fights. Obviously, I've extended. Well, actually, this fight camp now, I'm actually just back to sparring the guys.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So, I've built, this is what I'm saying now, I've been fighting for 12 years, and finally I get a group of girls my weight. It's just nice to have a group of girls to train with. Nothing against, the guys. I've had awesome, training partners, but it's nice just to have a group of girls. Yeah. And, and they're like me. They're all like-minded. They're driven. And I finally got this group together, and it's like, all right, see, girls, I got to get you with the guys now because I'm fighting a guy. I mean that in the nicest way. I get these compliments now, oh, you're a beast, or you're solid. It's when I first hear it, I'm like, oh, great, because, I've got big arms or whatever, but I'm like, you know what? I am a beast, and I am solid. And I didn't mean that in a bad way, because I know that she has a lot of bad history with the UFC and comments made about, appearance and this and that. I mean it. Yeah, she's a man. She's
like
she
a middleweight fella.
I've got, I am a respectful
That's the difference where the women's game now, like I was saying before, I believe before, Ronda's era, there was no real strikers. They hit like women. Yeah. And then what's come now, the level of competition now is...
Everyone's so well-rounded.
Yeah, they could scrap with dudes.
Sport across the world now. You look back 5 years, as little as 5 years ago, mate, is women's sport...
the curve for women, I when I jumped in the athlete space, I really want to get into the female space, because one, I like working with females, so they're heaps easier to work with than guys, but especially with money.
They're more organised, they're better with money.
They just listen, they listen. But the curve for females right now is so exciting.
I feel with females, we break things down, so even, I know why I'm like I am, and even the girls that I train with, it's something as simple as like throwing a punch. Okay, we will break it down as to why we have to put our foot here or and here, whereas a guy, I'll just be like, throw a punch. We want to know why you do this, and really.
But you're also, there's less ego there too with everything you do. I think that's just a testosterone-based thing. But when I deal with women, from my side, the money side, you just listen. You don't go, nah, this is how I do it. I'm better. You listen. And that must be what you do with fight as well. You listen.
It's a testosterone thing. Even building. Even when you're a builder, you got these 3 or 4 young kids, and I've got mates now who they've got chicks as tradies, and they swear they're fucking better. They're better apprentices because they do as they're told. Yeah. They're on time. They're dressed appropriately. They show up to work in the stuff they're supposed to show up to, and at the end of the week, they're not begging you for money a day earlier because they've worked their finances. And
sport's big though. Growing up, I used to play golf since I played golf since I was 7 years old. My dad used to make me watch the women's golfers because their swing was just in any sport.
It's a lot cleaner, eh?
Females' technicality is just phenomenal, and that makes I've never thought of it the way you just said it, but that's because I'm an analytical person myself. As analytical, my wife and I laugh because she likes to be a 2-step